Hey guys, Josh here, and last week I was invited by Natsume to an exclusive virtual preview of Harvest Moon: The Winds of Antos, where I got the chance to see over an hour of gameplay and ask a ton of questions to the developers. A few other content creators also took part in this event. It was split in multiple sessions, and in my session there was Eli the Gamer, who also covers farming games, so I would recommend you check out his channel. And then there was myself and a few developers from Natsume who were playing the game and answering our questions. In this video, I'll be sharing with you everything that I learned during this preview, and hopefully it should answer some of the questions you may want to know before you decide on pre-ordering this game or not. First, let's cover the basics. Harvest Moon: The Winds of Antos, published by Natsume, is set to release in North America on September 26th and Europe on October 6th. It will be available on pretty much every platform, so PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Series S, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. The PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam versions will run at a smooth 60 FPS, but I know most people will probably want to get the game on Switch, and that one will unfortunately not run at 60 FPS. However, the developers have said that it was developed with Switch in mind first, and they made sure that the game runs well on that platform. If you want to compare for yourself and see how the different versions look and run, all of the gameplay footage you'll see in this video with the male main character will be from the PS5 version, and the one with the female character will be from the Switch version. You can tell that it runs fairly smoothly on the Switch for the most part, but the game did stutter at a few moments, whereas the PS5 versions didn't have any issues. Also, even though I did get to see over 1 hour of footage during this event, I couldn't record that specific footage, and instead they sent me 8 minutes of Switch gameplay and 8 minutes of PS5 gameplay. So I probably won't be able to match the B-roll footage with everything that I see in this video, so just keep that in mind if you're watching. Before we get too deep into this, thank you very much to Natsume for inviting me. Everybody was so kind, I really appreciate it, and it was a really fun event. But I still have to say again and again, for the viewers who may not know, there is a distinction to be made between the Harvest Moon games released prior to 2014, which are part of a series called Bokujo Monogatari, which is now called Story of Seasons in the West, and the modern Harvest Moon games from Natsume, who owns the right to the Harvest Moon name, but are now making their own games. The disclaimer is out of the way, so now we can start, and let's talk about the different towns and the open world exploration aspect of the game. The first thing that it showed us was the town of Lengtenbury, which is the first town we'll arrive in, and it's themed around spring. The game will have 5 different towns, each with their own biome, basically one representing each season, plus one town that's 4 seasons. So already you can tell that they're using a formula very similar to their previous game, Harvest Moon: One World. Your main goal will be to reconnect all of the towns as they were separated due to the eruption of a volcano located in the middle of the island, but this time, contrary to One World, the story will be a lot more open-ended rather than linear, and you'll have more freedom as to where you'd like to explore next, and you will not be as restricted when it comes to the order you have to do things in. Each town will have a star rating, which can be seen in the top left corner of the screen, and you'll have to complete quests in order to revive them and bring them back to 5 stars, which will result in more items being available in the shops, and you should also be able to witness their visual transformations as you increase their rating. Each town will have its own characters and shops, and just like in One World, you will be able to easily move your house from one town to the other. If town life isn't for you, you'll also be able to move your farm to a variety of predetermined spots all around the world, like for example on some plains or even in the middle of a volcano. Keep in mind, some areas will have extreme climates like the volcano and will require you to purchase and wear specific clothes if you don't want your stamina to deplete too fast. If your stamina does go down to 0, you will spawn back at your house the following day. Also, the map is huge in this game. It will start fairly small and open up gradually, but from what I saw, it seemed a lot more open world than in One World. In fact, the developers have said that they put a lot of effort into making it interesting to explore, which is always a challenge with bigger maps as you need more things to fill them up. Like in One World, as you explore, you will find harvest wisps, which will give you seeds. You can also buy limited selection of seeds at the shops. You'll find forageables, fruit trees, fishing spots, and wild animals which you can befriend and tame. I do think there seems to be slightly more to do than in One World as you walk around, but I wonder how often you'll actually want to go back to these areas and explore after you've done it once, as I remember in One World it got pretty tedious for me just going out every day to collect the harvest wisps. Another thing that annoyed me in One World was how running depleted your stamina, and it's the same thing in the Winds of Antos. There are 3 different speeds, so you can run, jog, or walk, and jogging and walking won't deplete your stamina, or at least not as much, but it will take you longer to get places. Fortunately, the game will feature other means of transportation, such as fast travel, letting you instantly travel to places you've been before, and of course, we'll also have mounts. I mentioned the wild animals earlier, and one thing I found interesting is that in this game, not only will you be able to get a horse, but also a ton of other mounts like a camel or even a raptor, which you can find in the wild and befriend. In the preview, they showed us the racing competition using the raptor. It was so fast, and the player finished the race in like half the time it took the other competitors. Obviously, the raptor will be more of an endgame animal, but it shows us that each mount will have a different speed and stats. Just like we saw in the trailer, the movement did seem a bit clunky during the race, but overall, it looked like a fun little event. They also showed us the Harvest Moon Festival, which takes place twice a month in the evening, and they went to the beach town where in the water, a ton of wisps started appearing, and the player was able to collect all of them to get a ton of seeds. After the event, they showed us the night sky, which I think is one of the best looking things about this game. The sky does look really nice, and you could see a ton of shooting stars after the Harvest Moon Festival. It's a small detail that not everyone will notice if they don't look up, but one thing that the developers said is that with this game, they focused really hard on adding these kind of small details that make your experience better and more immersive. The developers also said that they put a lot of work into making sure that every day was going to be a little bit different. So not only will we have multiple festivals, but we'll also have requests from the different villagers. Some of them will be limited in times, some of them not, and there should be plenty of activities to get us sidetracked and busy. One of these activities will be the camera mode, allowing us to take photos and selfies. And one thing I asked was if the camera was going to be used for any quests, and apparently yes. Sometimes you will be asked, for example, take pictures of a specific animals or landmarks, which is something I wish we had in games like Story of Seasons and Wonderful Life, where we did have a camera, but it didn't have any sort of connection to the progression of the game, and it was easy to forget about this feature. In the preview, we also saw a little bit of the cooking, as the player needed to make a pie or something for a quest. And cooking does take a bit of time, but one thing I like is that you can cook multiple dishes at once. Also, I'm not sure if we had something similar in One World, but as you play, you will be collecting these Harvest Wisp fruits, and you'll be able to use them to improve your character, for example, by enlarging your bag or increasing your maximum stamina. You will start the game with pretty limited stamina and get tired easily, but the save file that they showed us during the preview was pretty advanced, with the character having a lot of stamina and being able to do a lot every day. Another activity that seemed pretty fun was the fishing. You cast your line where you can see shadows of fish, and when a fish bites, you have to pull in the direction opposite of where the fish is swimming. So if the fish swims left, you'll have to go right on your thumbstick, and then you'll have to press a button to start reeling, and the fish might start moving again, so you'll have to repeat the process and do that until you catch the fish. It seemed like a pretty good balance between simple and challenging, and of course, the type of fish you catch will vary depending on the area. Now, let's talk about the character creation and customization in this game. When you start, you will get to create your character, so you'll pick your gender, boy or girl, as well as a skin color. Later on, you will be able to change the hair color as well, but the hairstyle is not something you'll get to change. There will be different outfits to unlock, and these outfits will be gender locked. So the outfits you can purchase and wear will be different depending on the gender you chose at the beginning of the game. As I mentioned earlier, not only outfits will allow you to look different, but they will also be required in order to regulate your body temperature in certain biomes. So for example, if you go around the winter town, your character will get cold and quickly lose stamina, so you will have to wear something warm. You'll also be able to customize the interior of your house with furniture that you'll buy from the shops. You won't be able to move furniture like in some games, but you will be able to replace specific items. For example, change the basic closet by a closet of a different style. On top of that, you'll also be able to change the wallpapers and a few other things. In Harvest Moon One World, you can only choose between whole sets that would change every piece of furniture in your house, But in this game, you'll be able to change pieces individually and mix and match them, which is the biggest difference. I wish you could simply add, remove, or move furniture around freely, but at least we get a little improvement from One World. As for outside your house, well, obviously your yard will change depending on where you place your house, but there isn't much customization or decoration. You will be able to place and craft a few fences, and you can use them to decorate, but they will be used mostly to place around your garden, which will serve as a way to protect it in case there is bad weather like a hurricane or a blizzard. I found that to be a pretty interesting mechanic, and I like that you can do something to protect your crops. Just don't expect a ton of decorating in this game. The farming seems pretty straightforward overall. In each town you'll have a plot to grow crops. The one in Lichtenberry is very small because it's the first one, but the ones you'll unlock later are a bit bigger, and planting things in different locations will allow you to get mutated crops, similarly to how it was in Harvest Moon One World. Of course, to make it easier to manage all of your garden plots, especially if you have a lot in different towns, you will be able to craft sprinklers. Beside your house, you'll have a barn where your animals will live, and contrary to the garden, this barn will move along with your house. One interesting feature is that the barn will have an auto feeder machine in the center, and you'll be able to place things like weeds and grass to transform into food for your animals, which will be distributed automatically so you won't have to feed them all one by one, saving you a lot of time. One of the last things we talked about during this preview was relationships, romance, and children. In order to get married to one of the 5 bachelors or 5 bachelorettes in this game, and yes, they have added same-sex marriage, you will have to complete the main storyline first, which is estimated to take between 20 to 25 hours, which of course will vary depending on your playstyle. I asked if your spouse could help with the farm chores, and as we all know in many games they can water crops or take care of the animals, but that won't be the case here. However, they have mentioned that they added a ton of cutscenes with your spouse, making married life a bit more interesting than in previous games. Then we started asking about the child, and it got a little bit weird, but here's what we know. You can have a child. We did not get a chance to actually see them, but they will grow to become a bit older than a toddler, like a young child, but they will not become teenagers or adults. Then, I don't know if the question was misunderstood by the developers, but Ellie asked if the child was going to have the skin tone and features of your partner. Natsume said no. And then I asked if they would at least be having the skin tone of the player. And I was told that there would be a standard skin tone and that all children would look the same. And that left me a bit confused because I'm pretty sure that in One World, maybe the child took like somewhat of your appearance. So I'm really curious to see how they will look like. But from the answer we've been given, it seems like the children will not be taking any particular traits from either parents. And that's everything I saw and learned during the Harvest Moon, The Winds of Antos preview. Once again, thank you very much to Natsume for inviting me. It was really interesting to get a first look at this game. And it seems like this time they really did listen to the players' feedback and try to improve on the previous games by creating a world and characters that are more visually appealing, adding a few quality of life features, including same-sex marriage, and other things like that, but overall, I get the impression that the game will feel extremely similar to One World in terms of gameplay, such as moving your house from one place to the other, collecting seeds from the harvest wisps, and things like losing stamina while you run. I think that if you enjoyed One World, you will certainly like The Winds of Antos, but if you didn't like One World, the chances of liking The Winds of Antos are pretty slim, because yes, a few things were improved, but overall the core of the game seems to be pretty much the same. It feels like the Harvest Moon series from Natsume is taking incremental steps with every iteration to make the series a little bit better, and there's definitely been a big improvement between Harvest Moon The Lost Valley on the 3DS and the Winds of Antos that's releasing in about a month. Personally, I will give it a shot, and I think it's safe to say I'll probably enjoy it more than Harvest Moon One World, but with all of the farming games, the excellent farming games that have been releasing this year, The Winds of Antos will have a lot of competition. Let me know what you think. Leave a like if you learned something new about The Winds of Antos. Are you excited for this game or not? And if you don't want to miss my review when it comes out, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.